Welcome to The Dead Life. I'm Allison Dubois. Today I'll be joined by master astrologer Tom McMullen. With the resurfacing of the Menendez brothers, Lyle and Erik, on Netflix and in the news, we're going to take a hard look at their case. Tom McMullen has read Lyle and Erik's birth charts and is going to tell us what the karma of the Menendez brothers looks like and what they're made of. What does the birth chart of sons who murdered their parents look like? After 34 years in prison for a double homicide, could the Menendez brothers be set free? You can call me at 802-332-3811 if you have a relationship question for our Love Me, Love Me Not segment, or you want to share a paranormal experience of your own. You can start calling in now to share your sentimental Thanksgiving and Christmas stories for December's podcast episodes. I want to hear all about your spiritual encounters during the holidays of Christmas past. To book a reading with me, email us at booking@AllisonDubois.com. You can follow me on Instagram at Medium Allison, or you can watch me on YouTube to see new and past episodes of The Dead Life. Don't forget to pick up a bottle of my money potion vodka, Divination 22, at One Handsome Bastard in Old Town Scottsdale. Well, Tom, we can't get enough of you. Welcome back.
I'm glad to be back.
So you were literally just here, but this is so fascinating. And with the sun in Scorpio, it's so great just to have you here doing the birth charts of some of these more notorious killers that people wonder what they're made of. And with all the true crime shows that are out there, I think it's more interesting actually to have their birth chart looked at and really see the crux of the person, like who they really are. So, well, let's go back to August 20th, 1989. Lyle was 22 years old and Erik was 19. So where do you want to start?
Well, I'll start with Lyle. I'll just an overall for both of them, and I'll break them down. Their charts are very interesting. They're in extreme oppositions. In the making of a chart, which is like the circle of a pie, everything in Lyle's chart is on the top half of the pie, very little on the bottom. And in Erik's, everything's the opposite. It's in the bottom with very little on the top. So that one has very much a strong public identity. And then Lyle is chosen to be a very, very strong Capricorn energy. And so, that alone is that his sort of nature is to seek a public life of status, achievement, money, social positions, which he craved. And so he comes in from a past life where he's going to want to be a part of a system. Capricorn is an organizational dynamic and system. And what I picked up from him because of his nature is he's not in charge of the system. The system is in charge of him. He did not have the ability to be in control. And what came to me most is that this would be somebody who was part of a mafia or organized system of crime. So that showed up whether I knew anything about his dad or their past or anything, but that was the first thing that's like, yeah, that's there. Because he's a follower, he's not a leader. He wants desperately to be achieved and status and looked at in that way. Mm-hmm. So those classic moneyed things. But his dad's from Cuba, and there's a lot of crime involved in his dad's story coming in this lifetime. His dad was very poor, and he got very successful because he was driven. So the signature of his dad is the closest signature to Lyle in terms of... Just an interruption there. In the documentary that I watched, his family actually came from means in Cuba. Oh, I read a different one. That's why I watched the documentary and not the Netflix special. I watched the documentary too. That's funny. Okay, because I read it differently. Okay. So either way, the dad is driven like crazy, mm-hmm. and he is the one in charge. So he comes into a family where his dad is very much going to push his agenda on Lyle. And so now his dad is head of the mafia, essentially, right, in terms of what he comes into, because he wants to please his father. Because everything is about his success, is about being driven by a very controlling man. But it's interesting because the Capricorn energy he came in with, we have to look at where Saturn is in his chart, because that's the ruling planet. And it's hidden in the 12th house in Taurus. So he never achieved his own status. He never achieved his own self-sufficiency. And so again, we talk about the dynamic we had last time we discussed Pluto and Mars in opposition. creates a very violent energy, and he came in with that. So there's another signature of Pluto and Mars in opposition.
So just
Antisocial.
For the record, Jose Menendez was born to a prosperous family in Havana, Cuba. His father was a well-known soccer player who owned his own accounting firm. So the family did have means in Cuba.
Oh, okay.
They used to it used to be a great country.
Yeah, well, yeah. But anyway, so in seeing that he didn't have the authority in his life, and the authority was very violent in his past, so he there's a lot of violence and disruption, and so he goes into a system, because he's system oriented, that's anti government. It's social opposition. So therefore, it goes into a crime or a mafia situation very easily, and he very much sacrificed his whole life for these things. So his sacrifice was for the system, always has been, and he has a moon in Pisces in the 11th house of the system. So he's easily swayed into a system, very much so, and he's eager to want to belong. He's never a leader in a story. He's always a follower, and whoever he follows, he ends up in their world, if you will. And, that in itself is something he hates about himself. He has deep-seated selfishness because he's taken from others in his past lives and the things that he's done, but others have used him. So he's a user and easily used in his storyline. And he has the irony of this outcome is that he has enormous fear of confinement, because Saturn in the 12th house is someone who fears being confined by a system. And so the irony of how he ends
being
up
in jail,
being in prison, because he needs to be out in the world succeeding and learning how to be in charge. And I pulled up Lyle's elements, the fire, earth, air, and water element. And earth is very strong. And the earth strong is the strongest energy, which is like he needs to be in systems and organized and planned. And this is the dad wanted him to be a tennis player, and he wasn't naturally athletic. He wasn't naturally a tennis player, but he just built and pushed him. And his dad was very much in control of his thing, but he didn't have the fire in the belly to be someone who would succeed in that area, because he has one element in fire. So he doesn't know how to initiate himself. He has to be told what to do. And so he just follows whoever's in charge of him, and it was his dad.
What was his sun sign again?
Capricorn.
So Capricorn rules fathers. So
yes,
of course he emulated his dad. Okay.
Yes, and his dad was whoever was the father figure in his past life. Whoever he gave the power to. He's giving his power to others to tell him what to do, and the things he did had severe, violent consequences, unfortunately. And so he comes in with a sense of no identity outside of the system. And that alone is like he wants to break from it, which apparently is something he did when he was 22.
Yeah, he broke from it all right.
Yeah, so the dad was very much someone who was in control of him and high expectations and standards. He could never reach them. He was a perfectionist in himself, but he is an 8 in numerology, which is essentially, again, recognition, success, achievement, money. But he has this perfectionism, and he always feels like he could do better or do more. And he seeks out all avenues to need to be appreciated.
But if you're an 8, isn't it part of your karma to then go get that stuff on your own, like to earn it, to achieve it, to create your own wealth, your own fame? He
didn't know how.
He took these while he was 22. If he'd given himself some time, maybe he would have figured it out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But that's the whole point. He wanted those things. He had them, but he was afraid that he got in trouble. He and his brother got in trouble because they were breaking into people's houses in the neighborhood, burglary. Yeah. And when his dad found out, he threatened to disinherit them. That was it. That's all it took. Because that's what he's been doing for his dad, because that's what he wants at the end of the rainbow, because he doesn't know how to achieve it on his own.
Right.
You see. So,
well, he's lazy.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to put the energy into achieving it on his own. He's 22. There's different pathways you can go down, or your own creative pathway of creating wealth or making your own business, which he probably would have been fine with if he'd given himself time, but he wanted the money now.
Right. And he fears asserting himself. He has a fear around asserting himself because of his perfectionism and his lack of trust and belief in what he can accomplish. So he has more of a victimization in his own nature and feels like it's never going to be enough.
Well, I love my daughter, but Moon in Pisces does tend to be a little victim-y sometimes.
Well, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
But he's a victim of the system. That's what he claims.
That's what he feels.
Right,
Sure.
exactly. So, he has Jupiter and Scorpio and Sagittarius rules his 8th house. This can be where the secrets come from the molestation from his dad, because it's sexual control is obviously a part of this storyline with these boys. And so his dad, had some deviant side to him or whatever, and that part of his control. And it was something that, he hid, something he'd never want anyone to know. And he endured it very briefly in his childhood. Then it got passed to his brother, Erik. And so, but he was supposed to be the star child. And we know what happened. In terms of being objective in his world is the other weak element. He is very subjective. So he can't see outside of his own nature. And so again, that creates another victimization.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about him and nobody else. And that's another part of how he was.
Mm-hmm.
So, but there is a inferiority complex he comes in with, a very subconscious sense of insecurity and inferiority. And deception through trusting the wrong people is a big part of that journey.
Doesn't Moon in Pisces aspect of people struggle with that, of seeing people that they feel something for, whether it be friendship or romantically? They're a little delusional in how they see them. They see them the way they want to see them. And it doesn't matter how many people say that person's not like good for you or that they're not a good person.
That's a very astute observation, because his Moon in Pisces makes a hard square to Neptune, which is, so yes, and Neptune's in the house of others in relationships. So he's very easily deceived by being told what to do to make him feel better about himself. He's easily manipulated, and he was, you see, for the gains of what he thought, he wanted, his status, his success, his achievements, you see. So, and he is the instigator of the murder. Because he's the one that blows from the violence of what his storyline is. He cracked. And when he was told that he wasn't going to inherit, because he's going to manipulate and use his brother in this. Now, I feel they have a very strong karmic past life together. They've been through something like this before in their relationship. How it played out, I'm not sure exactly.
I don't think Erik would have actually committed this crime had Lyle not been around.
He would not have.
I thought it was interesting in the documentary that Erik felt guilty and was blaming himself for ruining Lyle's life because he was the one that told the psychologist about what was going on and that they were part of the murder. And that's how this sort of unraveled, was through that psychologist. But in reality, Lyle ruined Erik's life.
Yes, it really is. Lyle ruined Erik's life. And Erik, and again, Erik plays a different role in this because he feels everything. He is a sensitive. He came in a sensitive. He came in with an aspect that I have, which is he has Jupiter and the sun conjunct in the 4th house. Everything is dependency in his storyline. And so he's dependent. Everything's home, family, and dependency with Erik. And so he's a pleaser.
What's Erik's sun?
He's a Sagittarian.
He's a Sag. Okay. And the moon?
The moon is in Scorpio. So, and it's all the bottom of the chart. It's all family, drama, crisis, darkness.
Okay.
He could have himself been an alcoholic in his past life because he has a hard time functioning because he's overly sensitive to his environment. And so he has abandonment issues. And he moved a lot in his past life. There's a mutableness to him. He doesn't like moving. He wants to stay.
He wanted roots.
Yes, because home is everything to him. And he comes in a sensitive. His nature is more like what we call the artist, the spiritualist, humanitarian. He's that kind of soul. He's very sweet. He's very innocent in his nature. And he never got to be out in the world like what his brother wanted or like what his dad did, because he has Leo ruling the 12th house, and his past is in the 12th house of Leo. So he never was recognized. He's always in the background. So he gets a second-born position. He has much more energy toward his mom and the sensitivity around his mom's nature. And the understanding of that is that he feels he's supposed to be a protector of others, but no one's there to protect him. And so I think in the thing that he did go in to play tennis and was very good at it because he's Sagittarian, because they're good at achieving in sports. He wasn't what we'd call a scholared person. He was someone that has communication skills, and that would be more of a writer. And he's become a writer and a painter now. And his painting is without question, his artistic ability is very strong, very high. It wasn't encouraged. It wasn't, I read that they said he couldn't draw stick figures when he was a kid, but now he does these amazing paintings.
Yeah, I saw some of those.
Because he was free to be who he is now that he's sequestered in jail.
Well, there's nothing else to do.
Exactly, but that's his nature.
You're going to learn something, yeah.
And then he wants to write. He likes to write, but he had a hard time dealing. He wanted to die after that happened. I'm surprised he didn't commit suicide because he has every signature to do it.
Well, I think it was because he had an older brother in his ear that was saying, it's them. If they're gone, everything's going to be fine and we can live the way we want to live. So I think he was feeling as though finally we're free, because Lyle's the one that really convinced him that this was the way out and the way to happiness, it seems.
Well, but Erik's issue at the core level of his desire is literally survival. He's trying to survive. And he has a great fear of loss, a great fear of things leaving him. And that was a trauma from his childhood because his dad was never there. That's why he would, the sex went on for so long, because he goes, it's the only time I could see my dad. He said that. And it's like, okay.
So I will say this, and this is why I watched the documentary and not the Netflix movie. No, I understand, but you've got both in your head, which is why I just wanted to watch the documentary so that I could be that sort of voice as to what I actually saw them say. And when it comes to any alleged abuse that happened, nothing was ever proven that it happened. There was one aunt who said that when he was 8 years old, which brother was it at 8 years old that had told her that he was being molested by his father? So and I have it here, I'll find it. But one of the boys had told her that, and that is the only person that I found in the documentary that had said anything such as that. So you saw a version where it said they were molested up to the age of 18, which is highly unusual for children who are molested, much less a boy.
I think it's all he knew. What I saw when he confessed on the stand, they asked him, when did it start? And he said 8 years old. And they go, how did it last? He said 12 years.
So that was this after the first trial. So you're talking about the second trial, because the first trial, I don't believe this came up.
None of it came out.
But I found that interesting because the first trial was a hung jury. A second jury, just so people know, are more likely to convict when you go to court. And I'm sure that their lawyers let them know that. But they needed something to sway the jury to feel sorry for them. And then this story surfaces. So I just want to be clear about that.
Oh, yeah. Whatever the dynamic is that he didn't want to lose his father, his family, his everything. I think one of his issues with his mother is that it was going on and she didn't do anything. No one protected him. His brother was the one he thought was going to be his protector. Surprise.
Yeah.
Because his brother's
But he didn't kill his brother.
No.
It's like, okay.
Like you said, I don't think Erik wanted to do this at all.
No, I don't think so.
And so when it happened, he had so much guilt because of his sensitivity and his nature about that he did that. And like I said, I'm surprised.
So he was the one that shot his mom, Kitty, in the face.
Yeah.
Went back, reloaded, shot her in the face. Yeah. So I guess you would feel guilt.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And at the same time, it was like, then he was the one that told his cousin that it came out. And so, and we told, well, first he told his therapist. It came out through his therapist. And then that's when it came out. So he has to confess. This is his nature. You see, because he will take responsibility for what he did, but he was I can't say coerced. It was just something he loved his brother because his brother was the only one that was there for him. That's how he looked at it. His dad was gone, and the only time he said he was alone with him was when he was playing tennis or essentially being molested, if that's the case. And so, and his mom isn't intervening in any of this. She seems to be out of the picture in the story.
So in the documentary, I found it interesting because Erik was quoted as saying they asked him why he admitted to the psychologist that they had killed their parents. And then he said they included the mother because she'd be a witness or she couldn't live without their dad. So he saw it as a form of euthanasia because she'd be in pain from the loss. And I found, so he didn't say that they killed her because she didn't protect them.
You're right. No, I know that. But I'm just saying that's how I kind of look at maybe how he saw his mom.
I'm saying this for more of the listeners so that they, if they didn't watch it, they understand what was actually said, what was actually quoted.
Right.
Because I looked at things that were direct quotes that they actually have evidence of, not things that are purported or alleged that we can't prove.
Okay.
Okay.
But the sense of loss of his home and his family does tie to his mom's nature of not wanting to lose her husband. Mm-hmm. And that's that's why he connects with his mom's energy so much. And he has trying in this lifetime to break from this I mean, I think he's better in confinement than he is obviously his brother.
Yeah, he's just shining.
Yeah, he is. He's shining. And he started writing and he got all these letters from people and conversing, and he met his wife, by correspondence, and got married. And he's a guy who wants to have a family. It's so sad.
Oh, please now. Please now.
Well, no, I don't think he would do it again.
What a legacy.
Yeah.
So I thought it was interesting, though. I couldn't find it anywhere on the internet or any sources at all if Jose Menendez had a history of molesting any other children other than his sons, because pedophiles usually have multiple victims.
He did.
I didn't find it anywhere.
Yes, one of the Menudo boys was the one that came out and said that he had molested him, and that kind of threw everything back out to the public.
When did that happen?
It's 96. I think
1996. He came out and said that.
Whenever the Menudo was, yes, he did. He said he was 14 years old and Jose Menendez molested him.
He did.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wish that was in the court transcripts. That would have helped.
Yeah.
Okay. Because 70% of pedophiles have between 1 and 9 victims.
Yeah.
And 20% of pedophiles have 10 to 40.
Yeah. Wow.
So it would be interesting to see a pattern, because it makes it more believable, I guess is what I'm saying.
Right. So that's what another signature is, like, this guy did have an issue. He had a problem.
Well, and 75% of rapists were sexually abused as kids. So that would worry me if they let these guys out, they'd fall into this 75% that they might end up offending other people.
Yeah, that would be, I would think if anyone would, it'd be Lyle, not Erik.
Right. Well, you just never know, because it just changes their psyche when they're young and something like that happens to these poor kids.
But I understand that it's a possibility that Erik wanted to kill himself in his past life, because he's got Chiron in the 8th house of Scorpio, and there's a fear of loss. And so, it comes with a fear of, like, I'm going to be alone, I'm abandoned. And so then I think the worst thing for Erik, when they got separated, they were only reunited recently.
Right.
And so they were separated. It was the worst thing for him, because he didn't want to be away from family. Family was everything.
Yeah, I know, but that's the best prison.
Oh, okay.
I'm just saying, you're not supposed to be, like, accommodated in prison.
No,
you're being
I know.
punished. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
but that was the worst thing for him.
On a soul level, it would be the worst thing for him. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it was Diane Vandermolen that was the, I believe she was the aunt that Lyle at 8 told her that dad had touched his penis. And that was it. That's everything that she said that he had said to her. And I just don't know how that was said. Right. Because I've sat in the courtroom many times for cases that involve sexual abuse and murder. And you have to see the context of if she was leading him with questions, like, was she asking him these things? Did he volunteer it? Did he just come out of nowhere? Was he being helped on with a bathing suit? Like, we just don't know. That's the problem, because it wasn't documented back then. And people say back then like it was 1850, but it was, we had like video cameras and, you know, people with memories and such as well. So there was so much information in the documentary, if anybody's interested to watch it and judge for themselves. I thought it was interesting that you said that Erik was the one that should be a writer.
Yeah.
Because Lyle, I believe before they figured out it was him, and this would be in the interim of the parents are dead, but I don't believe they've been arrested yet. I'm not sure. People can email me and let me know. But Lyle wanted to know if a writer wanted to help him write a book about his dad because he was such a quote unquote great man.
Yes, that's true.
So I thought that was interesting. So his brother would have excelled at writing, and actually Lyle didn't even want to write the book. He wanted another person to write the book, and he'd just get the monies, the royalties. Yeah.
And Erik wanted to write a screenplay on the murder of parents. I know. It's
I mean, no offense to Capricorns, but what a Capricorn move in a sense. It's like, how am I going to make money? How am I going to make money?
No, Erik wanted to write the screenplay, you know.
Oh, Erik.
Yeah, it was Erik. Erik wanted to write a screenplay.
I wonder how much arrested development they have, being that they've been going through this since 22 and 19, because I would think a fully developed mind who was part of a life that murdered his parents,
right?
Especially shooting his mom in the face, which is so personal, while she was still conscious, that he wouldn't want to write a screenplay.
Oh, I understand what you're saying about arrested development, because it's certainly obvious.
Right? I mean, it very well could be. And there was a reporter that said Lyle became his father overnight. So this is before they were arrested. He became
his father.
He became his father overnight.
Yeah.
He went shopping for a Porsche, a Jeep, 3 Rolexes, a restaurant, clothes, and a $50,000 per year tennis coach. And so for somebody who would feel any sense of guilt, that doesn't speak to it.
Lyle finally got what he wanted the easy way.
Yeah,
that's all he wanted.
See, I think a lot of this is from selfishness and the money.
No question.
I don't think it had
case.
anything to do with protecting themselves from the parents, because at 22 and 19 years old, they could have left. They could have gotten in their vehicles and taken off. If we were talking about a 12-year-old and maybe a 15-year-old, I could almost understand that more, where they can't leave the house. You know, they're under their parents' rule.
Right.
They don't have the capacity to make enough money to eat and survive. But at 22 and 19, they could have packed up a car and taken off. There are a lot of young people around the country that we've always heard songs written about, jumped on a bus with $5 in my pocket and gave it a go, you know, but that's not where their heads were. They wanted the money.
Well, Lyle
and the
wanted
parents,
the money.
and the parents gone.
Yeah, I don't think Erik did. I think the money was all Lyle. I think he ran this whole thing.
I think Erik helped spend the money.
There is no question, but I don't think he was about the money. He just did everything his brother told him to do.
It almost seemed like he became his brother.
He almost had, that's all he had left. The family was just he and his brother. So he didn't want to lose his brother. So he just went along. And, but he isn't that guy. He, Lyle's past is money and success and achievement and wanting those things. And so he didn't know how to get them himself. And he wasn't going to leave that cash cow of a family inheritance until his dad threatened him.
Then it comes down to the money.
Absolutely.
Again.
Yes.
So when they try and separate it out and say they killed him because of the abuse, if this abuse actually happened, this alleged abuse, it was part of the reason, the fuel to give themselves permission to murder their parents, because they did want the money.
Yeah.
It wasn't to protect themselves.
Yeah.
As I see it, they're grown men.
Well,
so, I mean, they could have left.
Become grown men. One it was.
19 and 22, they've gone to war by those ages, and actually won a particular world war that we're pretty proud of.
Erik's used to adapting. He's a very mutable nature, so he adapts to situations that he's in. He doesn't take a stance. He doesn't have the drive or initiative. He's someone that just follows. They're both followers in their own ways. in their own different ways.
I didn't actually know that Jose Menendez, I mean, he was only 45 when this happened. And Kitty Menendez, the mom, she was 48.
Yeah, she's a couple of years older.
When this happened. And I thought the documentary was really fascinating because it showed her, she was like a pageant girl and a beauty queen. And
her sisters were too. They're a very attractive family.
Very, very beautiful. And, but it was, I mean, she's a generation from a different time, but it was just interesting because she was the ideal trophy wife for him.
Yes, she was. And that's what he wanted. Lyle and his dad want the same thing. They want the status of whatever it is society says this is your status.
But his dad would work for it and knew how to get it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, just watching the whole documentary, I was one of those nerdy court TV people back in the 90s because I was in college to get my degree in political science and history and then law school. And so I watched all of that. So I can't go into it ever because I'm tainted because I saw the whole thing unfold. Same with O.J. Simpson, even though we all kind of know what happened.
Yeah.
And I remember looking at them on TV for the first time, and they looked this was the first court case. They looked so smug and so disconnected emotionally. And there was something cold about them. And I find it interesting that and I think it was good for Erik that they had been separated in prison all those years, actually.
Oh, I agree. He needed that. That's his great. That was his fear anyway.
It was his fear, but it was in his best interest because you see Erik sort of become himself.
Yes.
And be able to articulate his feelings and what
his artistry.
And emotion and sure. And Lyle stayed the same, in my opinion. He's figuring out, how do I get out of here and how do I make money from this still? I have no doubt.
He would do that. Yes, he would.
I have no doubt. There's no shame there. And I've lived in Beverly Hills, which is where this murder happened, in Beverly Hills. And so I do understand the climate, the energy of the people. I get the game, the money. And I do see how people become so disconnected and it becomes about power and what you have. And it's this big competition amongst the cool kids to see who can amass the biggest fortune. But I will say I knew a lot of kids there who were raised by famous parents and very wealthy parents who didn't have the energy of Lyle and Erik. So I don't even think it is that it was Beverly Hills. I think that the father had the money was just the incentive to go this far, or Lyle and Erik, if they were born to poor parents, would have popped out of there as soon as they could have.
Absolutely. It is about the money.
Yeah. Lyle would have married somebody that had money so that'd be his way of getting money because he's got the Capricorn sun, moon, and Pisces. And so some people that are Capricorn actually, even though they love the financial stability and the money, and they really need that in their life to feel okay. And I read a lot of Capricorns, and no matter how much money they get, it's never enough. It's still their worry. They always worry about money down the road.
Yes.
And I just find it really interesting that some people will marry to get the money and have Capricorn in their chart.
That is exactly Lyle's signature. He would have married someone already established.
Right. And he was in a position to do that. He was in Beverly Hills. I mean, that he could have played the game and done that because
he would have gone to work for her father.
Right.
Had another dad in his life.
Yes.
that would tell him what to do.
Exactly. Well, he could have distanced himself from his parents if there are so many painful memories tied to them. So I don't know. It just seems that it was a perfect storm.
I think Erik would have gotten married very early and started a family. I really do. I feel like that's all he really wanted. He wanted to have that environment and didn't want to be alone. And so, I saw the huge difference in the two of them in that, because Erik, survival is through money and sustenance, but he wasn't wanting to be super rich and the things that his family had. It was comfortable and it's fine, but he would have been happy with very modest means. It just seems the way he would have been. Yeah.
So I thought it was interesting because Lyle, I feel I don't know if he was channeling his dad's power, trying to be him after the fact, but Lyle was quoted as saying to Erik in the Jeep, Now, how do we kill Oziel, who was the psychologist?
Yeah.
So he's like, okay, now we got to take this guy out because he's the only person who you told.
Classic mafia.
Oh
Classic mafia. Who's the next guy we got to take out?
Yeah, but, still a huge crime, big crime, murder. People have become desensitized to it with all the true crime and documentaries and podcasts. And I just want people to remember, when your life is being taken from you, the level of fear somebody feels, knowing that everything they've had, everybody they loved is about to come to an end and they can't do anything about it, that helplessness. Now layer onto it that you're a mother and you see your child who went to reload a gun, who now shoots her in the face, and you're being killed by your own children. So, we become desensitized, but all of this is just the grossest, most heartless way to murder anyone is an experience for a parent to be killed by their child.
Yeah.
Just as I think it's equally horrible for a child to be killed by their parent, which I almost feel is just a fraction worse because we're supposed to protect our children. But this was just a perfect storm. All of the layers that it took, those boys being together. Lyle got what he wanted. He got the fame.
Mm-hmm. You sure did.
So, I think that people that can't come by it honestly will try and take it and do it illegally. And it's why all the drug dealers, they want to be rich, but they have no talent. So I'm just going to steal it. I'm going to hurt people. So they have a criminal mentality.
Lyle definitely does.
At this age. Okay. I remember being 19 years old. That would have been the year before I met Joe. There is nothing in this world that could have made me shoot somebody I know
me either.
And reload the gun and then shoot her in the face.
Yeah. Well, we're not these people.
But at 19, I had been living on my own for years already and I had a job. So it's just a matter of taking a different path. He was young, but he wasn't a child.
But they both take the victim role.
I don't give people passes on that.
No, well, I'm just saying, I don't either. I'm just saying that is their, sort of agenda is to be the victim in the situation.
Right. No,
so
and you
doesn't recuse it.
And you see that. And now we have Macron, who's like the worst of California, who lets criminals out left and right. He's a victim maker for sure. Who, in my opinion, is the one that's listening to the Kardashians wanting to now let them out of prison because 34 years is long enough. It's like, well, let's ask the people that are dead. Is 34 years long enough? Because I don't know that it is. I don't care how old they were.
Well, I've been listening to a lot of this stuff myself because it's resurfaced. And I took a close look at the prosecutor, especially the second time around. And I really liked her because she was you. She was so you. Because she was like,
I guess I'll take that as a compliment.
She's like, because I don't care what the excuses are. I don't care, about how it's perceived.
Right.
The law is about the facts.
Right.
And the facts say this. And it's like, you can have an opinion about a lot of things. Doesn't mean that it's something that should happen because it's your opinion. People
make everything about emotion these days instead of what actually is reality. And especially with the law has to be applied.
Yeah.
And even if something horrible and improper happened with these men when they were children, which obviously I'm against. I mean, I initiated the Amber Alert for the state of Arizona. Like, kids mean a lot to me. I didn't see a lot of proof backing up the fact that those crimes happened to them. And we can't ask the parents because they're dead.
Right.
So now where are we at? 34 years they've spent in prison. My opinion is if you take someone's life, your life is gone. And they're like, well, they can be productive members of society. It's like the victims would have liked to have been productive members of society. So I just don't buy that. And I hope they don't let them out. And I don't know that Lyle especially would not reoffend.
Yeah, I would agree on that one. I think Erik would just fade off somewhere and paint and maybe get married, or he is married, take his wife somewhere and he'd go hide somewhere.
He'd have to, but I would say it'd be hard to find a partner, you'd think, but there's some crazy chicks out there. But, anyone who would kill their mother in that fashion, what are they going to do to you if you make them mad or feel insecure?
Yeah.
I mean, you'd have to ask yourself that question, I would think.
Right.
So do you have anything else to add to the Menendez brothers?
No, it was a very interesting to see the relationship as they are as coming in together in this scenario and having very different roles within it, different perspectives to it, and how they have a very strong and will come in again in a strong karmic connection probably.
Yeah.
Because they have to resolve this. This is coming back in again where you left off, and look where they left off.
Okay, so if they if they come back again, and I have to believe that when these things happen, it's for us to take a different path.
Yes.
Not to take the easy path, take the hard path.
Yes.
So for everybody out there that's like, why isn't the universe dropping gifts in my lap? Go earn it. Go get it. Go get the gifts.
But see, that's the difference between someone who takes charge of their own power and then one who doesn't. Because in that scenario, it's like being powerless creates the victimization. So, until you say, I'm going to take charge of my life.
Right.
So this doesn't happen again.
Yeah.
I can't depend on others because they're not there for me. Then it's up to you.
State of mind is only something that each individual can control. And so we have to take responsibility for our actions.
Exactly.
I agree completely. I just was born taking responsibility, I guess.
I had no choice. So I did too.
Well, you're a Libra and I'm a Libra rising. So I think Libra in the chart, actually, you always are looking for that balance.
Yeah.
In life. And I think it helps me tremendously.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it helps you stay perfectly coiffed.
Of course.
At all times.
The aesthetic is without question.
And might I add, well executed.
Thank you.
I thank you so much for running their charts and doing all of that work. And maybe we'll revisit this down the road after they make a decision on whether or not they're going to let people out for double murders. Not that I haven't heard it before, but we'd like to see a little justice in this world. Where can people find you to have their chart run and hear about their own personal karma and past lives? You do that, which is very cool.
Well, you can go to my website, tommcmullen.com, or you can just email me direct at tom@tommcmullen.com.
All right, get on it, people. I've got a lot of moms coming to me for life readings asking about their children, their grown children. And if your kids aren't listening to you because your mom or your dad, sometimes it's nice to have an impartial third party. So I've been telling everybody call Tom when they need that impartial third party who can talk to the son or daughter, the grown son or daughter, if they're open to it. And I'm hearing from a lot of my clients, oh yeah, my son would be really open to talking to Tom. Mm-hmm. So I give them your website and tell them to go there. I think sometimes people need to know what their energy makeup is in order to navigate it in their best interest the most effectively, Well,
everybody, in their family has different characters that are playing their roles. And when I'm talking to a mom or a dad and they have some kids and I'll ask their son, the sign of their child. And just in generality, I go, well, this is what's living in your house.
Yeah.
And they'll go, it's not you. Yeah. It's the whole point is being objective to what their nature is and why they chose the position. Like, why Lyle's the firstborn and Erik's the secondborn. Those things are important to know because they take parts of different energies of the parents.
That's why I've had you run all of my kids' charts,
yeah.
so I know exactly what they're made of.
Yeah, so it's like, well, that's what you got living in your house.
It helps me to navigate my relationship with them because I think sometimes mothers who have a little friction with a child think it's something they're doing, and it's not.
No.
Often we have an opposing energy to that child and they us, and it's about learning how to navigate it, recognize not taking it personal, that you don't take it personally, and just say, okay, well, she's a moon in Leo. This is what she's going to need, and this is how she views things, how she sees things. And it really does help me in communication with my kids. So I highly recommend it.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you to my listeners for tuning in. Tune in next week for a fresh episode of The Dead Life. I'm Allison Dubois. This is The Dead Life. To all of my believers out there, don't stop believing.
Join us next week on The Dead Life. And don't forget to subscribe now to get notified of every new episode.